This is the Mooncast.
See you, space cowboy.
Dude, I'm so freaking busy. I don't know if you saw my text, but I don't know if I sent it to you, but I am headed to Ghana soon in about a week. So I'm making preparations for everything. I'm going to be meeting with politicians. I'm going to be moving around, trying to close an export deal and etc. So it's a lot. It's a lot. Because like the thing is with the company that I have now, the software we're running. So it's a B2B SaaS-based model for documentation and storage for logistics. And so basically we were able to build out a clientele list. And I realized like, wait, hold on. I have connects in Africa. It's a logistics company that's shipping raw materials, all these logistics companies. How about I become a broker, And so, yeah, it's another one of the exhausting projects that I'm working on. But dude, it's not about me today. Today it's about you. And dude, man, first I want to say happy for you, man.
Thanks, bro. Thanks, bro. It's been a long time in the works. The promotion had been internally discussed had to be six to 9 months already at this point. It was determined pretty early, but even when you join a company, you still have to go through understanding the culture, the past history, right? How this applies to the future, timing. You realize I've been with the company now a little over 18 months, and there's still things that pop up that preceded me because the company was founded in 2016 that you got to put out these like multi-year fires that you had nothing to do with. You still got to figure out what the hell the issue is. So it's been an interesting ride so far, but I couldn't be more excited about the future.
Yeah. I have a lot of questions to ask you. I think one of them is before I start asking the questions that I have, I want to first talk a little bit more about Emblem Vault. And can you just, for people who don't know what it is, can you break it down to simplistically for people to understand who have absolutely no idea what it is?
To be honest, it took me probably 3 or 4 months after joining the team to also figure out what the hell it actually is. So I'll try to explain it as simplistically as possible through a few different metaphors and also some technicalities. So technically, what Emblem Vault is it exists in this classification called interoperability protocols within the crypto industry. And so you might be familiar with the two other types, which are called bridges and wraps. So wrapped assets we're the first ones to the scene. They're what you see wrapped Bitcoin on Ethereum. Basically, this is what we call a custodian. So the idea is that you send Bitcoin to BitGo. BitGo is one of the most popular custodians in the industry. It's been around for over 10 years. You basically send them Bitcoin, and then they send you WBTC, which is an ERC20. So you take this value of Bitcoin, and so you can use it on Ethereum. Also, they've tried experiments on Solana and some of these other ones, and this just shows like kind of how early it is. The next solution is called bridges. I think this is what most people are familiar with. It's primarily 99.9% fungible tokens. It's taking anything from Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, and moving it to another chain through two different type of mechanisms. And the different type of mechanism is what's important to differentiate here. You have something that's called a lock and mint. This is the most standard one. So if you've used any fungible bridge, you basically we'll use Ethereum for this example. If you want to take it to Solana through something like Wormhole or Layer 0, you send Ethereum to basically an escrow contract or a smart contract. It locks that asset, and then it'll mint VETH or STETH or whatever the prefix is, depending on the protocol. The other type is called a burn and mint. And this one is where this is something that the DGods team is actually using for their NFT through Wormhole. You basically burn the token and then it mints a new token on the other side. So it destroys the provenance of the token, but it allows you to be more fluid. And these are generally more catered towards like gaming, where the history of the token doesn't really matter because you're generally using something that's high throughput and low transaction fees. Whereas the lock and mint is actually the most popular, but it has it historically has the most hacks. It has billions of dollars in hacks. Obviously, the most famous one is Wormhole, which was hacked for $600 million.
Yeah.
I think that was 2 or 3 years ago. But they've come back and come back with a vengeance. And so,
did you get the airdrop?
I did not. No.
Oh, you missed the airdrop, man.
Yeah, I've been so focused on Bitcoin over the last 2 years. That is just, it's hard to pull away. I haven't really had like a true Solana kind of experience yet. I've been kind of waiting for Emblem to deploy on it so I can have that full kind of like aha moment, although I have dabbled in it a little bit. And so then you have Emblem Vault. Emblem Vault built its own type of interoperability solution called vaulting. And what vaulting is what we call encrypted mint. And to put it short, you're trading private keys to an asset. So we'll use Rare Pepe and the Bitcoin NFTs, which is what Emblem primarily focuses on, is the idea of the exportation of Bitcoin assets to Ethereum. And then we'll be moving on to other chains as well. We'll take a Rare Pepe because it's a counterparty asset. The advantage that Emblem Vault has here is that it can interact with UTXO-based blockchains, so proof of work chains. Bitcoin, Litecoin, Dogecoin, Cardano, etc. What the other two, or what bridging, the bridging sector has moved into is being EVM and SVM compatible. So if it's running off the Ethereum virtual machine or the Solana virtual machine, these bridges simply could just plug into it. But UTXO-based chains, outside of Cardano and a few select ones, much of the older ones don't have smart contracts, or it's very, very limited smart contract functionality. So what Emblem's innovation is not actually interacting with the VM that exists, the EVM or SVM. We interact with the wallet infrastructure. And what you're doing is you're trading private keys across chains. And we'll go back to the example here. So if I want to take a Rare Pepe, a Nakamoto card, which is like the rarest or one of the most valuable Rare Pepes, it's worth about, I think, around $200,000 today. And I want to take it to Ethereum where there's more liquidity, or the infrastructure is improved. There's a handful of variables of why you'd use Emblem. You would create a vault. And what the vaulting process is you go to our website, emblem.finance, you choose Rare Pepe collection, then you'll choose the Nakamoto card, and you'll click Create Vault. And when the vault is presented to you, you'll have a deposit address. It'll be a Bitcoin address. You take that Nakamoto card, you send it into that deposit address, which is a part of Emblem's system. And once you hit mint, we take the private key to that wallet, that Bitcoin wallet, and tokenize it on Ethereum. And so what you're doing is you're trading the private keys. So the asset itself never actually leaves Bitcoin. It's sitting in a Bitcoin wallet. The thing that you're trading on Ethereum are the private keys to that asset. So we take a much different approach to it. And turns out this is actually much more compatible with Bitcoin NFT assets, as it's happened over and over again. Back in 2021, Emblem's breakout moment was Rare Pepes and Spells of Genesis and Namecoin assets and some of these like Doge Party, Dogecoin. They were taking these and selling them on Ethereum. That was the first aha moment where Ethereum or Emblem Vault ended up doing about 30,000 ETH in volume in like 3 months. Like literally like $100 million just off of Rare Pepes and some of these other assets. And so this was before I joined the team. Shannon, who's one of the founders, and Eric, the two co-founders, they're like, wow, this is like a pretty big use case, because Emblem Vault was actually created in 2016. The original idea, you could go to bitcointalk.org and see the original kind of forum about tokenizing wallets. That was the original idea. And over time, the tokenization of wallets ended up being for one-of-one NFTs, where ultimately the original idea was to use it for DeFi. The original idea was to take a vault and store some Bitcoin and some Ethereum and some Litecoin, and then send it to your friends as a gift, or maybe take it and put it in these emerging DeFi protocols of DeFi Summer in 2020. Really had no idea what it was for. And this tends to be a trend or a theme throughout crypto, as you see all these developers put out protocols and the users in the degen never use it to the way that the original creator had envisioned. This happened with ordinals. This has happened with Bitcoin, right? There's still the conversation, is Bitcoin money? Is it a store of value, right? What did Satoshi actually mean? It's kind of used for both.
What do you think when you I want to just a little bit talk about that specifically, because I wanted to get to that too as well. When you see the emergence of the Bitcoin ETFs and you're seeing Bitcoin becoming institutionalized currently right now, how do you view the landscape of Bitcoin? Do you see it as money? Do you see it as just a store of value? Do you see it as a hedge against inflation, measurement for global liquidity? What do you see Bitcoin as?
It could be whatever your narrative is, to be honest. At this point, there's so many ways to experiment with Bitcoin, through the Lightning Network for payment channels, for ordinals, for non-fungible assets, right? For runes, for fungible assets. You could do BRC20, which is, right, a meta protocol on top of ordinals. There's tons of it. And I have a little bit of a unique perspective on it, because Emblem has been, again, exporting Bitcoin NFTs to a different chain for a long time. And I think it could be, it's primarily a store of value, but there is a lot of experimentation that's happening. And now there's new teams who are looking to do things like Cat VM with the Taproot Wizards, who are trying to push soft forks to improve the functionality of Bitcoin for DeFi applications, NFTFi applications, and some probably some unique applications that are privy just to Bitcoin and UTXO chains itself. There's been a few things that have provided that kind of insight for BRC20, inscriptions, bitmap, DMT theory. There's a handful of things that are unique just to Bitcoin, which has then extrapolated to Litecoin and Dogecoin and Bell's Coin. We're seeing this to be like a very popular kind of idea. So does it matter what the original thing of what Satoshi said? No, it doesn't actually. Like, we're here today. Satoshi disappeared 14 years ago or 13 years ago, and the community has taken over, and we're pushing it in the way that we believe is right. During the Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin fork of 2017, the developers had a little bit more leverage than they do today. And it was pushed in the general direction of what Blockstream wanted, with Lightning Network and also with their Liquid Network and a handful of things. 7 years later, it turned out that has very limited adoption.
Yeah.
And ordinals has proven to have a much higher adoption rate. I mean, even Runes 3 weeks later has a higher adoption rate of 520,000 holders, which is, magnitudes more than what exists on Lightning and on the Liquid Network. So here, how I kind of see Bitcoin is this pristine asset that is creating it's a pristine blockchain that is the most decentralized, limited smart contract functionality, that produces pristine assets, just as you would produce pristine assets in the gold mines or in the jewels, right? Or any of these like rare earth metals. Bitcoin, I think, is kind of is in a similar realm. It just is completely digital. And, is it, however you want to compare this to Bitcoin, right? Like, our ordinals, gems, our runes, gold, whatever. In this way, what Bitcoin is producing is being largely exported. And this is where you see a lot of these Bitcoin L2s that are starting to pop up. And people are saying, hey, on Bitcoin, you have a very limited functionality. And I've learned this too, working on OmniSat over the last year, which is a DEX that we've been trying to do. It's very, very tough. And something generally has to be outsourced to either the EVM or an off-chain indexer. You cannot do it completely on-chain. So this is where a lot of these Bitcoin L2s, and Emblem's been doing this for 4 years, right? We were kind of first to the scene to take these assets and start putting them on other chains. Earlier in Emblem's history, it was for lack of infrastructure and for larger liquidity, right? This is going back to 2021, 2022. Now it's actually for cross-chain applications, which is becoming a little bit more mainstream, and the concept is a little bit more fundamentally understood than it was back in the last bull cycle, right? And we're seeing this now with like layer zero, omni-chain assets, wormhole, Bitcoin L2s, and now even Solana L2s that are focusing on Bitcoin assets. And this is where Emblem Vault exists, is in this industry of, cross-chain applications, cross-chain compatibility. And the crossroads of Emblem's limitations is actually not VM infrastructure, but tokens and wallet infrastructure. Because what you're doing is you're trading the private keys across chain, which is a huge improvement, in my opinion, than being limited by the compatibility of virtual machines, right? So it'd be like this idea of like an app store, right? Like this isn't like throwing, negative light on them. This is just showing like what the limitations are for Wormhole and for Layer Zero. Their limitations are smart contracts, right? They right now there's no way for them to interact with non-smart contract applications because the way that messaging protocols work, they have to deploy a smart contract on each chain, and then that's where their messages or basically their terminal exists to get messages out to assets who are moving across chain. For us, our limitation is the crossroads of tokens and wallet infrastructure, because what you're doing is you're just tokenizing a wallet and putting it on chain in the most simplistic way to explain that. And so here, if a blockchain exists, it has a wallet. So in theory, Emblem can interact with any type of blockchain because it has a wallet and it has a token. And this is why the product market fit has happened multiple times. It happened in 2021 with Counterparty. It happened in the beginning of 2023 with Ordinals. The first way Ordinals traded was actually through Emblem Vault on OpenSea with Bitcoin Punks. We did about 3,000 ETH in volume in like 2 weeks when Ordinals first popped up in February of 2023. It then happened again with Litecoin Ordinals, and then Bitcoin stamps, and then ETH subscriptions, and then Bell's Coin, and the list just goes on and on. So this has happened now 6 or 7 times. And as of recently, I joined the team in November 2022. I was promoted to CEO last
Woo! Yeah.
It's been a long journey. I've learned a lot. We have some limitations because we're a small team. When Adam McBride and I joined the team, there was 2 people on the team. So, yeah. Right, this one developer and one co-founder had facilitated, over $100 million in trading volume, which is quite crazy. And now you fast forward to today, the team is 6 people. I brought on 2 recent friends that live out here in Las Vegas with me. My friend Chris Devitt, who I did a past business adventure with, and Swapna Gupta, who was one of the first 100 Coinbase employees. She was a senior engineer at Coinbase for 5 years and worked directly under Brian Armstrong, the founder of Coinbase, for many years. So she brings on a lot of expertise from the enterprise level, where Shannon, our founder, has been building on Bitcoin since 2013. He was actually a developer for Mastercoin back in 2013, which was the first ever protocol on Bitcoin. So he's seen the whole maturation of non-fungible assets and fungible assets on top of Bitcoin. And between those two, we hope to really bring this idea of cross-chain solutions and chain-agnostic marketplaces and cross-chain liquidity through Emblem Vault and through our technology. We're a team that's small of 6 and has never raised before. We've never raised any funds. There's no VC backing. That doesn't mean that it will never happen.
Are you looking? Because I got connects if you guys.
I'm open. We're open to it. I'm going to be completely straight with you because I've said this multiple times publicly. Since I joined the team, we've talked with 30, 40, 50 VCs, individual investors. The interest has grown over time. It's still not suffice to do a multi-million-dollar raise unless we really, really put our heads down and do it. The interoperability space between bridges and wraps and Bitcoin L2s are really kind of in that realm as well. Just really started getting funding this year. is you see a lot of Bitcoin L2s. There's now 10 or so Bitcoin L2s I've seen that have raised $1 million or more dollars.
Yeah.
So the fundamental understanding of Emblem, I think, is growing now because of the just understanding and acceptance now that the industry is moving towards a multi-chain future than what a lot of people envisioned was native experiences where you'd have essentially like these kind of closed ecosystems that wouldn't interact
Yeah.
with one another. Where Emblem's been believing that there will be a world of cross-chain liquidity and cross-chain assets since 2016. And when we went to raise, and we've talked with, again, everybody, Coinbase, Binance, handful of independent VCs, they just didn't really understand the vision. But also, I don't think we had, a proper business model set in place. As royalties have kind of gone to zero, we've had to toy around with how Emblem makes money. And we have a lot of exciting products that are going to be releasing here in the next few months,
I
including.
mean, I'm sorry, I just wanted to stop you. I mean, I don't think in the crypto space you really need to generate revenue to raise. I mean, I've seen people raise 300 million, without generating a single penny. So, but it is good that you are leaning towards more of a business model to actually generate actual cash and,
Yeah,
cash
well,
flow.
the crazy part is Emblem's been profitable since day one. It's a profitable business. Granted, we're not making, or we haven't been able to generate over the last year like the multi-million-dollar returns that it had the year before because of the dependence on royalties. But once royalties go to zero, right, you have to completely upend your model and figure out what is the right way to go about this. So one of the things that we're going to be doing here pretty shortly is launching Emblem Markets. Emblem Markets is what we're building towards as a chain agnostic marketplace. It won't exist like that immediately, but that is the goal. It's
Yeah.
basically the idea to abstract all the chains away so you just get one clean interface for one collection that represents all of the different chains. It'd be kind of the opposite of what you're seeing happen on Magic Eden. And I love Magic Eden. I use Magic Eden every day. But what Magic Eden is building is essentially individual native experiences on their marketplace, right? You could flip between Polygon, Bitcoin,
Yeah, exactly.
and you use their wallet to basically move, the RPC to that chain. Our goal is to build an experience to where you could list the asset in any cryptocurrency, and you could pay in any cryptocurrency, and you could have it delivered on any blockchain. So as of now, the example here would be, I'll use the Nakamoto card on Rare Pepe because that's one of our most popular assets in the Emblem Vault ecosystem. So you have a Nakamoto card that's worth $200,000. You have it, it's a Bitcoin asset, it's stored on Ethereum, right? It's vaulted on Ethereum, but you want Bitcoin for it. So you can list it for 3 Bitcoin, but then maybe the buyer doesn't have Bitcoin and they want to purchase it in Ethereum. So they put up, I don't know, what is it, 50 ETH or so, 70 ETH to get to that market. And then you have it swapped in the back end, but then the buyer, right, the asset exists on Ethereum, but the buyer says, hey, I want it on Solana. So then it's vaulted on Solana. And we have a lot of this tooling being built. Our migration process is a small component of that. We're building towards this jump function to where you can just take your NFT and move it from Solana to Bitcoin to Blast to whatever in a click of a button. And that bridging quote unquote solution increases the speed of migration or moving to a different chain by hours, sometimes even days at this point. I just had to unstake an asset from Merlin chain. It took 7 days. Whereas if they were using Emblem Vault, it would take 5 seconds to do.
When I just want to stop you right there with a quick question. So, because my understanding is when you mint an NFT on Ethereum, the metadata is stored on IPFS.
Yeah.
It's not even on the chain. So, how do you configure and maneuver with Emblem Vault? Let's say, for instance, Cardano, where the NFTs are actually stored on the actual chain, versus like Ethereum, where they're not. How are you able to make cross-chain swaps with that discrepancy?
It's actually a good question. So there's this idea of universal metadata standard, which is something Shannon, our founder, has been working on. It's extremely difficult because as you interact with all these different chains, the the data is stored in a different way. Some of it's on Bitcoin, a lot of it's just like social conformed data, whereas ordinals you have. So if you're using Counterparty, for example, right, the image is actually stored on IPFS, and sometimes there's no image even stored at all. It's just like people agree that this is a random name. So, like for example, with Rare Pepe and Counterparty, which was one of the first NFT protocols on Bitcoin, their whole their whole ethos or their whole kind of like idea is the token is the art. So you have a token that says Rare Pepe, but then sometimes there's not even an image attached to it. So then we have to manually go and figure out what is the right token, manually update it, and it becomes quite complicated. And this is actually the metadata standard is actually the main reason why our migration process has taken so long, because if it's not all stored on chain, and again, nothing is completely 100% stored on chain, not even ordinals are 100% on chain because the ownership layer is off chain. There are a few Ethereum collections like CryptoPunks and Mooncats that are all completely on chain, but the 99% are not. We have to generally partner with like an API service provider or go to the Explorer, see what's there, and it's a lot of negotiations and conversations in the background to get this data supported, because a lot of these protocols and I guess say platforms are very early in their infrastructure, and so it becomes quite complicated in terms of just like finding what you need. And this causes a lot of issues because if something changes for our API provider, I'll use Best in Slot, for example. They're the API provider to all of our metadata for all of our ordinals. If they go and change something, then that has an impact on the metadata that is shown through Emblem Vault, right? And they're a paid service, so we have to pay them. But ultimately, right, it's a little bit out of our hands because we could go out and build all of this, but we don't have the funding or the labor, right? Because it's 6 people to go out and maintain and build this all our own. It would take far too long, although it's something we'll probably do here in the future. But as of now, you kind of have to be a realist in terms of like your circumstances. And none of these networks across all these chains are mature. Like people will make it sound out to be, but I guarantee you from working on all these L2s and Bitcoin L2s and Bitcoin natively in Solana, I've still yet to see any of these ecosystems reach a fully maturation rate. So it's a lot of whack-a-mole. It's a lot of chasing. It's a lot of a lot of research and development, which becomes painful. But I've had to learn this personally over the last 8 months as leading a development team, two extremely capable developers, as having no development experience myself, right? So I've had to be a little bit creative in the ways that I learn and the way that I kind of delegate these types of things. And they also teach me as well. And I've been in the trenches in the development side for the last, I'd say maybe 4 or 5 months, really setting up this development team. And every day I get to learn something new, which is super, super cool. But also, as I learn something new, I figure out 3 other things are broken on the other side of
it. Yo, so wait, can you before I go to the next thing, because I want to touch on a little bit the R&D side.
We got time.
What? Okay, good. So what would you say your biggest challenge that you faced in the R&D side so far? I know it's a short stint of like 4 to 5 months, but can you just a little bit break down, because for the audience who doesn't really understand, the intricacies within R&D, if you could just break down a little bit of the challenges being faced.
Another really good question. You've you've definitely done your studying before this. So again, I come in with the frame of reference of the interoperability space. Again, wrapped assets, bridges, and vaulting. Emblem, even 8 years later, there's no other competitor. This shows how unique this product is. 8 years later, in an industry that's all copy pasta, derivatives, right, IP, etc., forks, open source. There's no other vaulting solution, public vaulting solution that exists. So Emblem is truly a one-of-one product. I thought joining the team 2 months ago or 2 years ago that there would be a competitor that popped up. They were like, oh, Jake and Adam, who are, kind of bigger leaders in the space, are joining this. Maybe we should fire up some competition. But still to this day, no competitors. I'll come back to that because I do think most centralized exchanges and large marketplaces will have a vaulting solution, or they will have to adopt or acquire an interoperability protocol of their own. We'll come back to that. The largest R&D experience that we've gone through, there's two. The first one right now, if there's any Emblem people know, this is our migration process of moving all of these assets from our Emblem. If you type in Emblem Vault Legacy on OpenSea, you'll see this is the collection I had at 50,000 ETH. This V1 contract has a lot of issues with it. One being that it was deployed in 2020. And so it was deployed before the entire NFT boom in 2021. So it does not carry any of these efficient methods, or it does not have any type of upgradability. And it comes with a lot of issues, and it was really rife with scammers and manipulators. And so we had to make a lot of changes if we wanted to scale. And so back in July, we made this decision, which was, I guess we'll find out in the next few months if it was the right decision or not. Because of it, if the company fails, because we had to pause basically revenue to figure this out. We had to take 50,000 assets, so 50,000 NFTs from this Emblem Legacy collection, and move them over to new curated collection smart contracts. Ultimately, what this meant was taking 50,000 NFTs, and on this Emblem Legacy collection, it represented 10 different blockchains and about 60 different collections in this one smart contract on Emblem Legacy. We had to go and move those to about 40 different individual contracts.
Jesus.
From my understanding, this is the largest NFT migration that's ever existed. And what we thought and what the expectations were to be 3 weeks is now 9 months in the process, right? And so what I've learned through this is, first, never trust a developer's timeline. It never fucking is on point at all. Yeah. I've worked with multiple contracted developers over the last 18 months for Emblem markets and for a new front end, and also for Emblem 2.0. So we have 3 different contractors working on 3 different things. Those timelines have never hit. Actually, most of them are actually multiple months over. But with Emblem Legacy, we learned that as we opened up kind of the hood, right, the code is messy on the back end because it was an original contract. You realize that there's all these intricacies of all these 10 different blockchains. You start reaching out to these explorers. The explorers aren't working. They go under, right? The metadata is different for every collection. Then you have the community that comes in and wants all these different specifications. And on our back end, we realize, we need to create a universal metadata standard. We need to create a bulk minting tool to move these over. We need to create a migration tool. We need to create a jump tool, right? We need to, and ultimately we found out we actually have to rebuild the entire fucking systems, which is what we call Emblem 2.0, which is another project that's happening in the background. And so now 9 months later, we have about 50% of the collection done, maybe a little bit more. I think if you go to the Emblem Legacy collection, it says 22,000 assets are there. There was 50,000 at one point. So we're about 60% of the way there. And this is something that we're continually working on, because once we move past that, and the Legacy was probably one of my biggest learnings of learning the technicalities behind it, the frustration, how to mitigate bugs, and a lot of these different R&D and also just managerial type things that go into running a protocol and not a project. And these are I place these in 2 different things: running a large piece of infrastructure versus running a PFP collection. And what you see like traders promoting, 2 completely different things. Like with infrastructure, we've released a handful of products since I joined the team. Hype marketing does not work with infrastructure. You need a slow rollout. And I've seen people fall under these mistakes time and time again. If you're releasing an exchange, a marketplace, a tool, people who are using these do not want surprises. Usually, if you surprise people with a product and they feel rushed, they're just going to pick this whole thing apart, because there's no, right, the whole idea of like hype marketing and is like profit incentives. You feel that FOMO, so like, I'm going to miss out on making something.
Yeah.
Here, right, if you release a product that has hype marketing, people feel like they're going to walk into a hack or an exploit, right? Because this is what happens with a lot of these pieces. So I've learned, you need to have some sort of compatibility between a solid product, but not a complete polished product that needs to be rolled out, because users need to test it. They want to feel like they're early, but also launch that alongside usually a partnership. So when we release new projects, we'll usually partner with a few creators to kind of help smooth in or bring their community into this new product rollout, so that they essentially are the testers, but they also feel early, and they're also supporting whatever artist or whatever creator entrepreneur that we're partnering with. From that kind of sustainability aspect. The second thing I would say of the biggest R&D is learning how all the backends of all these systems work, and also partnering or talking with a lot of these different projects. For example, I'll use the Bitcoin L2 narrative because it's a little frothy at the moment. I've talked with probably the majority of these Bitcoin L2s. I would say there's maybe 3 or 4 that are actually credible. The majority of them that I've talked with just want to get a partnership agreed upon so that they could promote it on social media, so that it hypes the value of their token, so that when they do an ICO, people feel right that they're FOMOing into something. And we've
People are still doing that.
it doesn't end. It's human nature, and you'll never get rid of that. There will always be FOMO. I mean, there's a few million people in the space active per day. You're trying to get to a few billion people. So there's always going to be the greater fool. And so we've had to actually close off and be a little bit more selective with the official partnerships, because this happens very consistently. Also learning more about, the token pre-sale kind of like a methodology of how that works, the regulatory aspect of talking with, lawyers on the back end, how to form partnerships. And then again, going back to the R&D of how all these protocols work, specifically with Bitcoin, a lot of the projects claim completely decentralization, completely on chain, completely non-custodial, whatever it is. Most of these projects that advertise that are not actually that. There's always some sort of off-chain component. There's some sort of loophole. So I actually take a lot of this with a grain of salt, but it also has opened my eyes to knowing and seeing that a lot of these protocols have to have interoperability at some point. For example, a lot of these Bitcoin DeFi protocols are moving into a way where they're outsourcing a lot of the accounting for the protocol to an EVM or SVM smart contract, where, a year or 2 ago, a lot of people who were building on Bitcoin, they had this very maximalist take where it's like, it's our chain, it has to be all on chain. And now because of the the multi-chain experience of a lot of these builders who trade on Ethereum, they trade on Solana, right? They're buying ordinals, and then they go and build. They actually don't have any issue using 2 different chains to get a project done, whereas before it was not like that. And this has allowed us to really open up the expansive nature of what Emblem 2.0 can be, where you have multiple things exist, or multiple pieces of key infrastructure can exist on multiple chains. And we're building Emblem in a way to where the entire product exists on multiple chains. So it decreases the attack vector. It increases the non-custodial and decentralized aspect of it, because there are a lot of central aspects of Emblem Vault. We do not want it to be that way, right? We want to mitigate as much risk as possible, not holding keys, right? Having completely decentralized key encryption, to having nodes so that all of the transactions can be completely verified, to XYZ decentralized non-custodial aspects to it. And the best way to get to that is our belief is to have multiple pieces of this exist on multiple chains, so that you interact with all of these different communities. And this is where R&D goes, is it now we're not limited by the confinement or the limitations of one chain. You really get to have the limitations of the entire industry, which is what Emblem Vault is. Emblem Vault is, at the end of the day, the limitations of the Emblem Vault technology is wallet infrastructure and token infrastructure, which every blockchain has to have both of these to exist. Therefore, the limitations of Emblem Vault, in my belief, far exceeds the large majority of interoperability protocols that exist.
When you look at the regulatory situation and the climate right now currently, because you guys are in the States, right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
I don't know if you saw.
North Carolina company.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know if you've seen some of the stuff that's going on with the SEC, and I think was it Samurai Wallet? I think that there was an
Samurai,
issue
yeah.
that happened. Yeah, exactly. So I'm wondering, how do you guys plan to maneuver and de-risk yourselves, from, the SEC kind of not wanting the crypto industry to flourish the way that it should? And I know a lot of U.S. companies, I know personally a lot of U.S. based companies are going to Dubai, they're going to other areas to launch their projects. How do you foresee the regulatory situation in the States? And do you think it's going to get worse or it's going to get better? How do you see it?
I think it's definitely going to get better because the SEC is now firing off all of these Wells notices and filing these lawsuits that had been pending for literally years at this point. Emblem Vault's actually somewhat caught up in the controversy because Coval, our Ethereum fungible token, is listed on Coinbase, and Coinbase
Hmm.
has a lawsuit with the SEC, right? And the SEC's lawsuit is that they are selling securities on their exchange. We believe that Coval, which is our ERC20 token, is not a
Hmm.
security. There was never a pre-sale. It was completely airdropped. It's been pre-funded, right? And so there was no primary sale to or to make it believe that it could be a security or an investment contract because it's been given out free for its entire history. But outside of that, right? Outside of that aspect, the big, I guess one of the main concerns is this idea of like a money transmitter license, which is what the SEC just slapped Uniswap with, right?
Yes.
Of the Wells notice. And so the way that Emblem exists, we have to build our technology that's compliant, but also you don't want to limit the types of innovation. So we have something that's called an SDK, our software development kit, which we have a bunch of builders currently using to build things like fungible token bridges, NFT to NFT swap tools, which is what the DGods team is doing, and a handful of just variety of reasons. And that was the reason why we open sourced it. We have to create basically just a terms of use, right? And a terms of use, right, or terms of service, which is what we already have for our technology. We have to build all of these to cover your asses. But at the end of the day, if the SEC wants to come after you, they'll do it. I mean, there's the two lawsuits that they've lost already were on the grounds that they don't have the regulatory oversight to call SEC or to call Ripple a security, or I forget what the other one was. They also took a hit about non-custodial wallets as well. So they're
Yeah.
just continually
They,
losing.
they lost they lost with Grayscale. They lost with the
Grayscale.
Ripple case, and yeah, they keep losing, and it almost seems like their efforts are futile. But I'm watching this closely, just seeing how the situation ends up in the States, because a lot of countries have been able to get a head start because the U.S. is a little bit behind in terms of regulatory clarity. I actually just did a speech recently. I got invited to the Pan Blockchain Association.
Let's
Uh,
go.
yeah, and yeah, I was talking about real world assets, the MiCA regulations are coming out too as well, which are actually pretty good. They're actually favorable towards crypto. Like for instance, in part of the regulations, one of the things I found cool was they cleared up the idea that, hey, if you swap from, let's say, in this simple example, so the audience can understand, if you were able to swap, but you can't, but if you're able to swap Bitcoin into Ethereum, or let's say Ethereum into a native token that's like a Uniswap, that's not considered like a taxable event. It's only a taxable event when you swap it into a stable coin. So this is another thing that I really like too, because it kind of clears that up, because we use that actually as a native token to swap into another token for to pay gas, so it's not really, shouldn't be taxable in my opinion. Same thing with like the staking rewards, and there's a lot of stuff in there that's actually pretty interesting. I think a lot of people should look into, and maybe the US can actually look into what Europe is doing. It's not perfect, but it's much more better than what the US is currently doing right now. It's a step in the right direction is what I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you saw the Trump statements recently about that Trump is going to accept cryptocurrencies, and that if you're in the crypto industry, you're gonna have to support Trump to get it passed. And it's becoming hyper politicized, and I've never seen really that big of a disparity between two presidential candidates on one topic, between Joe Biden, who is literally who's trying to shut it down, through Elizabeth Warren, SEC, and then you have Trump and having Vivek on his team, who's a huge cryptocurrency component, kind of talk to him and say, right, this is the right way. I mean, he's done his own NFTs and stuff, but that's all licensing more than it's probably him actually doing it individually. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. I mean, the whole crypto industry is supporting Trump now at this point.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're a one policy voter, right? To me, if you're not voting for Trump, you're voting against your best interests, at least
exactly.
At least at the time of this conversation, until proven otherwise.
Yeah.
And hopefully there's some more clarity. I mean, at the end of the day, this is all we want, is to get clarity. Emblem Vault, we operate in the interoperability space, where, at we have people reach out to us or use our project or our protocol in a variety of ways, and it's tough to really limit that because of the open source nature of it. And so we lead, we talk with our legal team on what they believe is right. We set up the terms of service and like the kind of the legal jargon that you have to do as a US company to put up there. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's to me, it's shown that if the SEC wants to come after you, they will, regardless if you've put up all the protections or not. And so we're going to continue to move forward and respect the laws of the US. And it's definitely prevented us from doing a handful of things like we wanted to do, with like staking and burning, which are the two things the SEC has said you're not allowed to do. And those were two kind of main components of things we wanted to do. When I joined the team, now we have to, again, we have to be malleable and adapt. On the same topic of that, right? Royalties went to zero. We had these tokenomic ideas, all within like 2 or 3 months. All the ideas that we had about the future kind of all went to zero because of the SEC and because of the regulatory kind of environment. So it's caused us to really have to change a lot of kind of the vision of Emblem Vault, which was the reason why we had to go through the scaling upgrade, because if we didn't, we would be subject to a lot more limitations to these like non-upgradable contracts that then are enforced kind of by these laws of the US. So we needed to have some flexibility, and we took a big risk, and it's all because of the kind, not all of it, but part of it's because of the regulatory environment and just the ever-changing nature of the crypto industry, where there's a new trend or there's a new business model, things change, things get deleted. And the building side of this has taught me that crypto changes so much. And they say Silicon Valley is a tough place to build. This is an even much harder place to build. Although here in the crypto space, your voice and your brand and your opinion and the attention that you can bring, I think, goes much further than the Web 2 space of Silicon Valley. Right? Adam and myself, Adam McBride has like 50,000 followers, and I have like around 25. That goes pretty far in terms of a megaphone, especially when you're hanging out and curating a community through, we host 3 shows per week, and we're highly engaged with the Bitcoin community and the Ethereum kind of NFT community as well. And so for us, like, the longer it takes to build, it's not necessarily a downside. Yes, the value of the tokens may decrease, but we could turn on that marketing meter at any time, just because of the following that you have. So balancing both of it, where it's like, the technicals are taking much longer than you thought. So we have to lean in much harder into the socials and into the community engagement aspect while the team figures out how to solve these solutions. And of course, I'm in those conversations as well. And being an effective CEO, I think, comes down to how well you can translate information throughout the team, right?
Yes.
Because the developers speak in this like very binary language, where the marketing side does not, right?
Yeah.
It's ones and zeros. Can this happen? It's black and white. There's no gray area.
Yeah.
Whereas on the social side, when you're hosting spaces and doing podcasts and things like this, most of it's in the gray area, because you're trying to really get down to what are the main issues of it. And so having to translate these between the community or between the team back and forth, while also, working with different developers and contractors for our marketplace or for our front end or Emblem 2.0, or right as I'm talking, I have people talking to me about a fungible token thing that they want to build. And all for me, it's like taking in and doing like business development, and then taking those ideas, translating it to the team while they're also building. It's fun. There's days where you literally, from when I wake up at 7 a.m. till 7 p.m., it's just like calls and podcasts and like
Yep.
complaining. And
Yep.
it's
Welcome to the club.
it's a lot of fun. It's very exciting. The space that we are in, Layer 0 and Wormhole are the two biggest, I think, interoperability protocols. Both of these teams have literally hundreds of millions of dollars in funding, so we're kind of going up against Goliaths. Although messaging and vaulting, their messaging interoperability protocol is we're a vaulting protocol that's within the interoperability space.
Yeah.
So they're not directly in our sector, they're in our industry. But we have, in my opinion, Emblem has a much larger advantage because we can interact with EVM, SVM, and UTXO chains where they can only interact with VM kind of environments. It wouldn't put it past me that they're doing some R&D on how to interact with UTXO and Bitcoin-based chains. But we also have 100 million or more in TVV, which is what we call total value vaulted, which is the play on total value locked, for example. And as you know, network effects in this industry are exponential, and they're and they're hyper. Where it's once you get this TVL, especially with NFTs, we've learned it does not leave. It doesn't leave. One of the stats, which when we talk to investors and we talk to VCs or different like angels and stuff like that, the stat that we have is about 80% of assets that enter the Emblem ecosystem never leave. So, and that we have about an 80% retention rate.
Wow.
And so the goal for us is to get to 1 billion TVV, because once you get to that amount, right, that's the psychological number that people will see, like, oh, you have $1 billion in total value locked, right? There's something going on here. And that's the number that we've learned is more attractive to investors than actually like the amount of money we make on fees. Mm-hmm. They want to know how much value is in that ecosystem so that you can monetize it in XYZ kind of methods. And I've learned this just over time, and I'm no expert in this. I'm happy to say that I don't know a lot of stuff in this, but I will take whatever experiences that I've learned through these different conversations of all these different leaders to try and apply it to our ecosystem and to get better. At the end of the day, 18 months ago I was a moderator in a Discord. Now I'm a CEO of a company that has $100 million in TVV, so it's a lot of responsibility to take on. But also for me, it's this idea of being open to not knowing things and being open to the community and telling them I don't know anything. I've never ran a marketplace before, right? I don't know how to develop. I don't know how to code. But I do have a strong inclination of how to lead and how to point our team in the right vision and how to product manage, I guess, which is what I was doing kind of the last year and a half. And combining that with the team of, being I am the CEO, but it's more of a flat structure. For me, it's just more of understanding all the different departments and how to apply it all together. I think that's what a true leader is, and how to embody that without coming in and pretending that you know everything, because I don't, right? The more I learn, the less I know about this industry. But building the relationships on the back end has been quite pivotal. And this is something that I spend most of my time on, unfortunately, now is diving through these different ideas, the business development side, right? Diving through these ideas, trying to figure out how we apply to it, relaying it to our developer. Is this something we want to pursue? Where do we put it on the timeline? But also outside of that, this should be unsurprising, but is something that has been surprising to me, is the human management side of it. Everyone here has lives, right? The majority of people on my team have kids, right? Their families. So there's the family aspects to it. What days you need days off, the things of like, right, having to care to their wife or their kids, or right, hardships in life. This is something that this is something that the crypto space is just completely ambivalent towards and just does not like to accept that there
It
are
doesn't
people,
turn off. It
right? Yeah.
doesn't turn off. It's 24/7, you know?
Hey bro, I'm just trolling is something that will not just challenge your perspective, but also touch your heart and soul. It's a book that defies convention, blending art and literature into a thought-provoking masterpiece. A reflective piece of provocative art that tackles societal constructs from angles you've never considered. Hey bro, I'm just trolling delves into the very essence of our existence. It questions the technology that surrounds us, challenges our notions of beauty, stares unflinchingly into the eyes of death, and questions the boundaries of freedom. It scrutinized the educational system that molds our very future. This book is a journey, an exploration of shared human experience, and it's a work of art that refuses to be confined by tradition. It's a canvas painted with words, a melody of thought, and a testament to the power of creativity in a world dominated by algorithms and data. Visit moonboycapitalventures.com and get your hands on Hey Bro, I'm Just Trolling today. It's not just a book, it's a movement. Now let's jump back into the show.
Yeah. And so having to set that up and those boundaries, it limits the rate of development that can happen, but it's something that has to happen, right? These developers can't sit and code for 7 days a week or they're going to go fucking batshit crazy. Whereas I really have no issue being kind of the public facing guy and talking to people all day just because I've been doing podcasting for a while now. And I have a lot of fun with it. But at the end of the day, right, I work from home. And so, and everyone in this space, technically, if you do crypto full time, you work from home.
Exactly.
Figuring out what those boundaries are to turn off work at a certain time, right? Or stop tweeting or stop doing research. My last girlfriend would get mad at me because I'd be up at, 9 p.m., 10 p.m. still working and doing things. And she's been doing this 16 hours already. I'm like, I don't know. I just literally am incapable of turning this off at times. Mm-hmm. It becomes tough.
I relate to you so much, man. Like everything you said is literally my life currently right now. Exactly that. And I think it's so cool that you're in that position now too. So it's going to be cool. Like after we get out of this podcast, so we can engage more and talk more about, the other aspects and everything that you have to go through in the managerial portion and the communication portion. The communication portion is the most key thing, I think, as a CEO, is trying to get the right information to your team in a way that they understand it, or get the right messaging to trigger them to be sort of motivated, to want to do the thing, and also explain the why behind it too as well. And then it's a lot of research too as well in the back end. Same thing as me, 3 a.m. My girl's like, hey, you're still up? And I'm like, yeah. Gotta do research, because who's gonna do it? Who's gonna fix the problem? Who's gonna lead the team in the right direction? It's you, and dude, I'm so proud of you, man, and I'm happy for you. And I know it's just the beginning, because the more of us that there are, the bigger the network effect gets for crypto. And I just want this space to win. So I'm really, really excited for you and your journey, man. And I wanted to ask you a couple more things. I don't know how much time you got, but
I got time. It's
okay.
Early. It's 10 a.m. where I'm at. So.
Oh, okay. Cool. Because I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the mass adoption perspective that you have currently in the crypto space, and how you see things going the next 5 to 10 years. And do you think that people, I don't want to use this word, but I guess I have to use it, the normies, like the people who have no idea about crypto, but do you think that they care if a chain is on, if the product that they're using, the decentralized application? Yeah. So do you think that we're going to have to get to a point where we just have user interfaces that are built on top, and then the back end, no one cares, and they're just able to transact and move value to one place to another, similar to kind of how we have it now with Web 2, where no one really cares about the underlying protocol?
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So I think there's a cliche term that we use a lot where it's like users don't care about decentralization until it's too late, right? So decentralization is important so that you could be self-sovereign over your assets, and you can understand that nobody else can rip away whatever you own, right? Your Bitcoin, for example, if you have it in a self-custodial wallet or just like a user-generated wallet. Whereas where some of the consumer applications are headed, I don't think decentralization really matters as much. Users definitely want permissionless. They want to be able to go and enter an ecosystem. Like for example, Emblem Vault is permissionless. No, you don't have to talk to us to use the product. There are central aspects to it, and it is not sufficiently decentralized to the degree that I would like. Yeah. But we do have this path towards decentralization, whereas I think this is where most products are going, right? You start out centralized and permissionless, and then over time you decentralize different aspects of it, whether it's open sourcing the code or how the private keys are stored, or do you have node networks to verify transactions? There's a lot of different ways to go about what decentralized means, and it's very ambiguous because you have leadership decentralization, right, mining, and so there's all these different things. But the way that things have moved, I mean, just this cycle in his example, all of retail is literally just trading meme coins on Solana. Right? They just want
myself included.
Yeah. A lot of people playing Pump.Fun and all of these things. I personally am not. I mean, I'm born and raised in Las Vegas. I live in Vegas now, so maybe I was just like burnt myself out at a younger age of just doing basically just general gambling. I like a little bit more sophistication to it. You know, I like going through mental gymnastics before I actually make some money, before just like buying the straightforward meme. Although I do like, although I'm a big fan of memes. But you look at it, right? They just want to be able to buy trades, go in and out, and that's it, right? Like before that, if you wanted to trade, stocks, you have to go to Charles Schwab, you have to set up an account, you have to KYC, you have to send money in. It takes 10 days to get the money transferred, etc. Users just want to be able to go in and out however they want. So what does this mean for the rest of the industry? And this is where Emblem Vault, I think, has another strong advantage. From what we have seen, users want to use the strengths of whatever the blockchain is for whatever their practicality is, right? So, for example, here with meme coins, users just want to gamble and they want to try to put a little bit of money in and make a lot, and they want to try to do that as fast as possible. And this is where Pump.Fun has become like a really strong consumer app. That's exactly what they want, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you learn about the different cultures that exist throughout the different communities, and they all vary. So if you move over to like Blast on ETH, right? It's a highly centralized kind of layer 2, which no one really cares, right? They just want to go in and they want the dopamine hit of the points. They want to feel like they're trying new products, which there are new products on there as well, right? And they want to essentially gamble, but gamble in this like gamified way, not this PvP manner. It's more of like, we're generating points, we're getting the protocol token, etc. Whereas you move over to Bitcoin and the ethos over there is definitely higher on the decentralization. They want native products, right? They want to use their Bitcoin, but because Bitcoin has a 10-minute block time, things move a lot slower, and that is a feature, not a bug. And so you see a little bit of an older crowd on Bitcoin. It's like I won't say by age, but I would say it's mostly millennials and older who are dabbling on Bitcoin because it has this like slower kind of methodology to it, where Solana and meme coin traders a lot just mostly Gen Z and sometimes even younger as that moves to the speed of that generation. And this is where I think this is again where the crypto industry is moving, is at some point it won't really matter. People are going to use these chains for whatever their specification is. You have now 3 kind of general purpose public blockchains that are being utilized to a high degree: Bitcoin, Solana, and Ethereum, right? And all the L2s. And people are using them for similarities, but you could see the disparities starting to show. And it's been clearly obvious for me for a few years. I think for many people now, it's becoming even more glaringly obvious. And at some point, it's not going to really matter. Although the thing that I do think matters the most is the culture that is being cultivated on the chain. That is what is attracting people to these chains. The people, right? Why people are trading Solana or trading meme coins on Solana, lots to Ansem's tweets, right? Like he's kind of one of the main characters here. Whereas you go to Bitcoin and a lot of people are following Leonidas and what he's doing, and TO over on Ordinals and Udi, right? For example. Whereas on Ethereum and Blast, you're seeing people follow whatever Pac-Man is doing, and also some of the stuff on Base and some of these like traditional kind of ETH PFP community leaders.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that is the most important layer. Then the technicals is this social layer of the community that exists, and the toxic tribalistic take of what used to exist, where it was like ETH versus Solana, Bitcoin versus ETH, or whatever. It still exists, but it's becoming less and less prevalent over time. And what is becoming more and more prevalent is just the fun and social consensus nature on that chain for whatever that use case is, versus just coming in because it's completely decentralized or whatever the use case is. So users get to be selective of whatever their principles are, and that is the chain that they're interacting with. But over time, it becomes less and less important, and less,
Yeah.
and it's more and more transparent towards the intention of the user coming to this chain, because they get to be more selective because of the growth of the industry.
When you look at the modular thesis that's just been the new tech that's came out with like the Celestias and so on, where they're separating the data and the execution layer, and so people can then port then their decentralized application on top of different sort of blockchains. Do you see that as a potential version of how the future could look like, where it's like, oh man, it's clogged up on Solana, let me just port this over to like Ethereum? Do you see like that's how the future could potentially look like, or how do you see the interoperability evolving over the next 5 years or so?
Yeah, another good question. Yeah, I mean, we're already seeing it now. Whenever Bitcoin gets like really clogged, a lot of you'll see kind of this like new momentum into dogenals, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because Dogecoin is a UTXO chain, so it satisfies a lot of the degrees of self-sovereignty and decentralization that a lot of Bitcoin users go.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll see a lot of transaction activity just move over to Dogecoin whenever Bitcoin becomes unusable. It's kind of very similar with Solana. Well, you'll see when Solana was breaking down, people were moving back over to ETH, but it was to the ETH L2s this time and not the layer one. And it'll continue to be that way, for a little while, right? This is where all these like Bitcoin L2s pop up and stacks and ETH L2s. ETH has done a better job of having these users move from mainnet to L2 for the incentives. And I think now the users on Ethereum are a little bit more accustomed to L2s. I mean, gas on ETH mainnet the other day was 3 Gwei. I've never seen it that low before. Like, it was insane. And it speaks to the success, and a lot of people won't really talk about this, but it speaks to the success of the adoptability of Ethereum L2s, which is something all these other chains are trying to do. Obviously, Solana is a monolithic kind of chain. I do think
Mm-hmm.
in the future it is possible that L2s will start popping up, and I think that's what's going to supercharge its culture war. I've gone on the record saying this before, and it's a little bit of a contentious take, but Bitcoin has gone through its own culture war over the Bitcoin Cash fork.
Yeah.
Ethereum is gone over its own culture war as well, with the kind of L2 debate and the modular take, and also it had a DAO fork and all of this different nature. And it seems like all these public blockchains do have some sort of civil war at some point, which is kind of the breaking point. I do think for Solana, it's going to be this idea of like, do we try to maintain its monolithic nature, or do we try to scale even more and try to populate a lot of these kind of L2s or side chains to help ease some of the issues on the network, right? Some of that drag. I think that'll happen probably in a few years. I know they do have something called Fire Dancer coming, which is supposed to help with that. But to kind of wrap that all up, this is the current state. Users want to interact on L2. It's easy, right? It's less loopholes. Even just the simple process of taking an asset and bridging it is a pain in the ass. The delay, different things.
Mm-hmm.
But the hyper specialization of these kind of scaling networks, I think,
Yeah.
are finding adoption. Like, you look at Base, you look at Blast. Merlin chain for Bitcoin had some adoptability. Had almost 4 billion in TVL at one point, which is its focus is bitmap. So you
I
are,
thought that was a typo on DeFi Llama. I think I forgot what mentioned. I was like, wait, is it really 4 billion? It's crazy, man.
yeah, there could be some Fugazi kind of stuff happening there. I've been kind of learning some of the, I wouldn't say shady, maybe it's shady, or some of the, I guess you'd say disguised marketing tactics where it's not completely transparent to what's happening there. That's definitely a situation for a lot of these things. But where the future is going, right? Everything has to scale. I think the one thing that's shown the industry is that users are fed up with high transaction fees. Bitcoin is starting to get there. I think users are okay with paying a little bit of a higher miner fee because the permanence of Bitcoin, if you're inscribing an ordinal, that image is going to be on Bitcoin forever, and people believe that Bitcoin will be around the longest. So therefore, whatever you're inscribing is going to be there forever, and the idea of permanence people will pay a premium for. But there will be a point in time where people are just fed up with paying high transaction fees, and people will move from Bitcoin. But that could be next cycle. That could be 10 cycles from now. Who really knows? I mean, the idea of Ethereum L2s has been around since 2017 when Polygon did its ICO on Binance. And turns out it took almost 8 years to really start seeing some L2 adoption, which we're seeing now. Turns out it wasn't even on Polygon, right? It's on Blast. I know Arbitrum and Optimism and Polygon are kind of the general purpose L2s, ETH L2s, and a lot of these other L2s are using their infrastructure, right? So like Base is using Optimism, Merlin is using Polygon, et cetera, et cetera. But this speaks to the modularity of it, where this quote unquote Bitcoin L2 is built on EVM, but it has a focus on Bitcoin assets through, these interoperability kind of protocols or whatever it is. I'm a firm believer in the modularity kind of idea. I do think some of these are getting a little bit too extreme, where it's like, we'll use Bitcoin as the DA, and then we're going to use this for the scaling. We're going to use this for this. At some point, it doesn't really matter. It's just we're all just a bunch of nerds that are just sitting here debating, the semantics and the semantics of what a Bitcoin L2 really means and all this stuff. Yeah, but the majority of those who are coming for gaming or for art or for whatever the future SocialFi, RWAs, DePIN, whatever the future kind of use cases are, they're coming in and they're using it for a specific use case, and they're going to use whatever blockchain is more or is the best for their specific use case. And that's all it really matters. And again, I use Solana as an example. People want to come here and gamble, and they want to try to find the next 100x. They want to put one SOL in, and they want to get 1,000. Therefore, Solana is the best thing to use right now for that. And I think the on-chain activity is showing clearly that this is what the market wants.
Yeah, when you look at the L2 narrative, because this was a little bit of my thesis coming into this bull market, because the amount of coins, the supply has increased at over 100x from the last cycle. And I just don't see as much liquidity to be able to garner all and accommodate all of those coins. So same with the L2 narrative kind of with Ethereum. I feel like there's an oversaturation of L2s on ETH already. And with Bitcoin, I agree with you totally, because most of the Bitcoin layer 2s are, I don't want to use that word. Let me try to figure out a different word. They're not quite adequate enough or haven't reached MVP stage yet. Let me say that, And for the few that I've researched and I've looked at, still, not where I think they should be. But if Bitcoin layer 2 is going to be the future, I'm just curious as to how that can be facilitated to the masses to be able to do, because the idea in my head still lingers of, okay, can Bitcoin become that peer-to-peer network for daily transactions that, what El Salvador is perceiving it to be? If you look at El Tunco in the Bitcoin city and what they've been able to accomplish there, can we bring that small use case, that small proof of concept, and can we extend that out to the masses? I'm not entirely sure, and if we are able to do that, what does that look like? And what are there needs to be sort of these initiatives put in place to protect, or these protection mechanisms in case people send money to the wrong wallet or send value to the wrong wallet. And this is another thing, because consumers, they can't even remember their email and their username and password. So in my head, I'm like, how do we, because I see some stuff, I see initiatives that are going on. If you look at Kujira, I don't know if you're familiar with that ecosystem.
No.
But they're a grassroots DeFi ecosystem that used to be built on top of Luna. before Luna crashed, and then a lot of the DeFi nerds went over there to Kujira to build. And currently, right now, they're building out a seedless wallet. And I'm not entirely sure about the technicals of how it works, but this is for me step in the right direction. It may not be the best solution, but a step in the right direction to bring on mass adoption, because people they get confused. Like my dad, I was showing my dad MetaMask, and he's like, "What is, what is, what is this thing? Are you coding? Like, what?" I was like, "No, Dad, this is like the future of the internet. This." You know, we're a little bit too behind with UI UX experience, and I think that's where we need to focus. And also another thing too, a lot of these applications they build on websites when majority of the world use mobile phones.
Yep.
So shouldn't we be prioritizing mobile phones instead of websites and laptops and tablets?
Yeah, it's the crazy part with Emblem Vault is all the success that we've gotten, it does not work on mobile, which is quite crazy. So we've had to build Emblem Markets and our new front end with mobile first intentions. Although, I've been in the industry since 2016 and I use my desktop for everything. I don't put anything crypto related on my phone just because of all the hacks, right? And social phishing and all these different things, SIM swaps and all these different things. So there's going to be a different user base for the different types of products. Trading, it seems like, is best for mobile, right? Just because it's instantly there. You have all these Telegram bots that are being created to even increase that. Again, this goes back to, right, the consumer application right now in demand is for gambling, right? Gambling products or investing, CasinoFi, right? Or just simple ways to get a transaction out. And the UI UX sucks, dude. The front end for Emblem Vault is quite bad, and that's why we had to build a new one. And a lot of these products really are. But the future of the industry, there's going to be a breaking point where once regulation I guess once the regulation in America is finally decided on, and the attacks on the industry from the SEC have subsided, I do think you'll probably see a lot more venture capital, a lot more builders come in once it's identified that this is a place that you can build and you can feel safe. And the UI UX will probably improve. I mean, if you look at like just the early internet, the UI UX was quite bad even then. I mean, things like GeoCities. When you look back at like GeoCities, which was like one of the first kind of social media sites back in like the late 90s, like the UI UX of that was fucking horrible, right? But people are now building crypto products almost in a similar way to where it mimics the GeoCities UI UX. And that just shows kind of the early kind of industry, right? Everything looks retro, pixelated. It's giving that kind of like old school feel because most people who are using this stuff are generally from those like early internet days. And so it gives a little bit of that nostalgic feel. I don't dismiss that everything definitely needs to be drastically improved. It is getting better. It's the abstraction, I think, is what needs to be created, which is why for Emblem Markets, we're trying to create a chain agnostic marketplace to where it doesn't matter what wallet you're using, or it doesn't matter what blockchain you're interacting with. It's just like a simple, this is the cost. You could buy it with these XYZ currencies. You could have it delivered on an XYZ chain. Outside of that, it doesn't really matter if you're on MetaMask or you need to switch to Blast RPC or whatever the quick kind of situation is. And that could just come through experience and education and time, to be honest. We're getting there, but again, once you understand that blockchains are slow and efficient and scale very slowly, as much as people want you to believe, we still have quite a long journey ahead of us. But once we get past these regulatory kind of concerns, maybe over the next few years, you'll probably see a mass influx. And also don't discount that crypto is inherently international.
Yeah.
Even though there is a large amount of the foundations and protocols and kind of founders live in America, there's still a lot of builders across the globe. Whereas, in the early internet, the large majority of builders were limited to just the geographic area of the United States, whereas now it's not. And so, at some point that's going to come due where the entire world reaches this hyper competitive state for all of these products. And I think that's where it really, really takes off. But until then, you got to really just respect the journey that we're on. We all know that crypto is here to stay. I've been in that belief since I joined the space in 2016. And to me, it's never been more prevalent or just more widely accepted that, this is here to stay. There were a few moments along this journey where we're like, man, I don't know if this is actually going to make it or not. I had that belief, but there's a few gut punches that in late 2018, or you say maybe late 2019, and then the COVID crash, where you really had to double check and really think if you wanted to stay with it. But ever since COVID, to me, it's never been more obvious that this is going to be this settlement layer of the internet in this digital economy that is just becoming larger and larger and larger by the day. Right? I'll kind of wrap it up and say this: like, every Sunday, if you own an iPhone, every Sunday it tells you your screen time, like the amount of time you've been on your laptop and on your phone. To me, that number just continually has been going up and up and up over the years. And most people I talk with is also the same thing. So if you have now the world of 7 billion people spending more time online, there has to be a settlement layer to be able to showcase who has ownership over these different things, how value is transacted, and the flow of different types of decentralized products. That is going to happen on the blockchain, whether it's one blockchain or 50 blockchains, or the industry just becomes hyper specialized. I think it's still to be determined. You do have a few general kind of purpose ones, and the rest will probably be hyper specialized. And people are going to interact with these based off of whatever their intentions are. You'll have very few people who are interacting probably with the general purpose, or who are interacting with layer 1 10 years from now. It'll probably be mostly institutions or large capital allocators or providers who are moving large amounts of capital who say something like, hey, moving $2 billion, I'd rather do this on an L1 where it's the most secure than try to push this transaction through Polygon that has a centralized sequencer and has XYZ other kind of attack variables. That is going to be what's layer 1. Everyone else will be in layer 2, 3, or whatever execution layer, or layer 1 plus, or whatever kind of things are being built. And I know this has been said now since 2017 that all these transactions will move to layer 2. But I think that this cycle has shown very clearly that, on Ethereum, people are now starting to move to L2s. And maybe it's not to the degree or percent that we would like it to be, but it's the highest percentage that it's ever been.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think Bitcoin is still at its MVP stage?
No, I would say it's probably pretty close to its final form. The reason why these Bitcoin upgrades happen every 2, 3, 4 years is that's intentional. They want Bitcoin to move slow, watch what other products are doing, watch what other blockchains are doing, what other teams are building on Bitcoin, and kind of move in that way, right? Ethereum moves fast, breaks things, has all these different changes. Most Bitcoin people do not want that. I would say, even for me, as somebody who operates on multiple chains, I would like to see Bitcoin have less upgrades so that it stays more true form. And the people who are building on Bitcoin are building in a different way from all these other chains. There a lot of these, I would say probably 95 or 99 or to 100% of these protocols all are using off-chain solutions for their Bitcoin products, whether they're using an indexer or they're using another chain. That is the way that people are currently building on Bitcoin, with this idea that Bitcoin is building or creating pristine assets, whether it's Bitcoin, the asset itself, non-fungible assets like stamps or ordinals or counterparty, or fungible tokens like runes or BRC20. These are all going to be outsourced to other economies, just as, in the world through international trade, you have trillions of dollars of value moving between all these different countries. I hadn't said this example, but this is the example I use a lot to explain Emblem. And this is actually like a pretty solid example of how I view the industry overall. You have blockchains or layer 1s I view as countries for the most part, right? What countries they are specifically doesn't really matter. And then you have all these dApps that are built on top of a blockchain, or L2s are cities or states and cities, right? Or jurisdictions that exists within this country. And the interoperability protocols are the mechanisms that you move assets between countries. There's a handful of ways to move assets between countries, right? You have like a shipping container, they move through a plane, right? Helicopter, on a small boat, through a train, through a car if there's a bridge. And I believe Emblem to be one of those things. You have bridges and you have wraps and you have vaults. And I view Emblem as the universal on-chain shipping center, because what vaults are NFTs, or they're NFTs that hold other NFTs. So inside of this like Emblem vault, you could put a Solana NFT, a Bitcoin NFT, Bitcoin itself, all inside of a single NFT and ship it, which is very similar to what Amazon does, right? Or what your postal service does is you go to your postal service, you put in XYZ things into a box, and then you go send it to a different state or a different city or a different country. And this is how I view blockchains, is that, just like in the real world where you have cars that are imported from or exported from America to these other countries, or you have like champagne from France is being imported to America, right? Or you have labor that's being imported or exported to China or some of these third world countries. There's going to be very similar parallels to this in the crypto economy as it becomes a little bit more mature. And this is why I say that, we should be using blockchains for their strengths instead of trying to extrapolate on their weaknesses. Yes, you should definitely improve the weaknesses, but the industry should be focusing on the strengths and how to pair it together across all these different chains. Just as the global economy takes their strongest resources and exports them. This is what every country does. I think every blockchain should probably follow suit, right? Whether that's developer talent of Ethereum, whether it's the pristine assets of Bitcoin that are being exported, or whether it's the high TPS or the the kind of like a Rust language that is being used on Solana that is now being used on all these other chains or all these other protocols. This is what the industry should be doing, and I think that it's now finally starting to move towards that way, through the modular kind of blockchain thesis, through these interoperability protocols, and also through just like the newcomers in the industry who are starting to realize that this blockchain is best used for this protocol, this blockchain is best used for high TPS, and etc.
When you look at the new development with runes, and I know last time that I brought we spoke about ordinals, and that was like the beginning stages of ordinals and what Casey was doing and everything. So I'm completely lost, honestly, with runes. Like I can't keep up. I'm so busy these days, and I wanted to just bring you on to just a little bit break down what are the differences and nuances between runes and ordinals, and how does it benefit Bitcoin as a whole?
So the best way to look at it is this simplistically, and I'm oversimplifying to a high degree, but ordinals are just a protocol for NFTs on Bitcoin. Runes are just a protocol for fungible tokens on Bitcoin. Just as on Ethereum, you have NFTs that are ERC 721, that would be ordinals. Just as you have ERC 20, that's fungible tokens, that would be runes. Casey just needs to name these in a different type of way because that's just kind of the character that he is. Very, very smart character at that. And, BRC20 was a test or an experiment to see fungible tokens on Bitcoin. The thing is, this was built on top of ordinals, so it's limited to the capabilities of ordinals. Runes is its own standalone protocol. And there have been many attempts at fungible tokens on Bitcoin, from colored coins in 2020 or 2012 to Mastercoin in 2013 to Counterparty in 2014. These are like the most quote unquote on chain that you could get. And Runes is just the same thing. It's trying to do fungible tokens on Bitcoin using the UTXO model, which is much more native to Bitcoin than using the accounting model, which is what BRC20 does, which is similar to like kind of what Ethereum does. Is all kind of an accounting model that's barren or is that limited to what the logic is of a smart contract, right? Because the smart contract's what owns or identifies the ownership layers and the amounts of a ERC20. And so right now, Runes is it launched, right? The liquidity did not meet the expectations and so therefore now it's kind of going through a consolidation period. Also, the infrastructure is not completely there, but there are a lot of builders on Bitcoin, and there's a lot of new things that are coming to it that'll help improve that efficiency. I think a lot of people are really turned off by this like bundle or batch purchasing, which is kind of what BRC20 and runes mean. I think once you get these like dexes and order book kind of feels, which a lot of users are comfortable using over the last few years, you'll see probably a lot more liquidity flow. But simply the one reason, an easy reason to be bullish on Bitcoin fungible tokens is just the sheer size of Bitcoin of $1.2 trillion or $1 trillion in underlying value that's sitting there to ape into the ecosystem. Whereas, things like Ethereum, has a 300 or $400 billion market cap, and it has 50 ERC20s that have $1 billion or more market cap, right? So just from that amount, you'll say that Bitcoin therefore should have, 100 or more. It'll take some time to get there once it gets more adoption and it's a little bit more efficient. And if you look at these kind of like comparisons, it is true to the T all the way down the board. You look at Solana. Solana has a third of Ethereum's market cap, maybe a little bit less, and it has $10 billion or 10 billion tokens or $1 billion market cap tokens. And so just from that, the liquidity of Bitcoin will eventually find its way to runes, into ordinals, into all these different things, just once the infrastructure matures. So it's something to pay attention to. Right now, it's kind of going through its meme coin phase, where it's just, this is what happens when a new fungible token exists. People just want to speculate without having the requirement of utility. Eventually, there are teams, including Emblem Vault ourselves, that have deployed a rune, and we'll be looking at different ways to find utility for our on-chain users or our native users of Bitcoin. And what are those clear utilities, or what are those? It's not clear today. I have some ideas. I think each team is running through some ideas of how you could apply some type of use case to these runes for your specific protocol, whether it's Emblem Vault as an interoperability protocol, or Liquidium, who's a DeFi lending protocol on Bitcoin, to whatever XYZ protocol that's going to launch their things. It's going to take some time, but at the end of the day, meme coins started on Bitcoin in 2016 through Counterparty and things like Pepe Cash. I don't see in a world why Bitcoin wouldn't have some of the top meme coins, but also just some of the top utility tokens in the industry. And I actually think utility tokens on Bitcoin are going to have a much larger return and a much larger kind of use case than people are led to believe. But time will tell, and that's what I'm excited to be here, is to build it and figure out the way to find that adoption.
When you look at the UTXO model versus the account-based model, because it's my first time like getting on the Bitcoin chain and really starting to use it. I played around a little bit with ordinals, and I was wondering if it could evolve into something similar like Cardano, where you're able to bundle up different assets into one UTXO and transfer that value into the designated, public address. I don't know if that's a possibility yet on the Bitcoin network, or
you can do that. There's a few tools. It's called UTXO management tools. Mm-hmm. For runes, there's some specific ones called like auto splitting, where you could split the UTXO so that you could sell a certain amount. There's things like on Ordinal's wallet, they have ones where you could basically split or bundle your UTXOs together based off of what you want to do. It's a little bit more of a kind of an advanced kind of fundamentals of understanding UTXOs and how they work. Yeah. But there are tools. It is still limited. I'd say there's maybe 5 of them that have UTXO management tools. But at the end of the day, I think most of these will have some sort of UTXO management tooling as the ecosystem matures.
So it's not ingrained in the protocol, similar to like how it is in Cardano. You have to do an outsourced third party and then leverage that to be able to execute the transaction.
Yeah, the best way to think about how assets on Bitcoin exist, right? Whether it's NFTs or fungible tokens, Bitcoin is like a rock, right? There's only a handful of things that you could do with it, and right, it's limited to the protocol that exists. So, like for example, runes. I think Casey said it's like 200 lines of code. He said it's very simple, it's very neat and compact, and then it's on to the application layer to then come in and build a complete user experience utilizing these assets. And so this is where you get a lot of the outsourcing to different types of smart contracts or off-chain indexing to get that compute to what they need to do, right? It's like if you're running, let's say, I've been building OmniSat with these guys for a year. Like if you want to do a Uniswap, basically, which is what we're trying to do, like a Uniswap kind of style AMM on Bitcoin, you can't put all those transactions on Bitcoin, right? It just like it does not work. It's not efficient like that because of the 10-minute block time, because of the limitation for the amount of data that can be stored in per block, 4 GB. You have to take this accounting, right? All the transactions, and either put it on a server, right, on an off-chain indexer. That's kind of like what the early days of ordinals were. Or what a lot of teams are doing is they're using either a smart contract on a Solana or a smart contract on Ethereum, whether it's an L2 or Ethereum mainnet, to push all of these transactions to, and then they basically just put like a roll up or a stamp down on Bitcoin, so that if you ever need to verify it, you can basically look at the hash, and then the hash then pushes to whatever kind of contraption system you're building on the back end to then push all the accounting to make it more efficient. But at the end of the day, all these users, they just want to be able to sign into they want to log in with their Xverse or the Unisat wallet, and then they want to trade, and then that's it. They don't want to have to do these bridges or anything like that. So if you can create that simple experience to where I just sign in with Xverse and I hit swap 1 Bitcoin for XYZ dog coin, right? Dog go to the moon, and it just works, then I think that's the person who's going to win. And whatever is happening behind the scenes is important, but I don't think it matters as much if the product works. And I don't think many people will actually really care at this point, because now we're a year and a half into it. And most people have realized that doing something completely 100% on Bitcoin is nearly impossible at this point.
All right, I want to close off with this, because last time we spoke, you mentioned something that now I'm actually considering you could potentially be right. And you said that memes could be the payment network for the internet potentially one day. And do you still agree with that? Seeing the current events that have happened and transpired, Solana with the meme coin and everything like that. So where do you see memes? Are they here to stay? I mean, Van Eck just launched an indice for meme coins. Yeah. So how do you view meme coins currently?
Yeah, it's interesting. I would say that it couldn't be even more true today, but it is becoming a little bit more specialized. And I'll kind of wrap it up with this example. So one of our one creator that we work closely with at Emblem is Dark Farms, who created Boom, book of memes on Solana that it went to $1 billion in 2 days. And I think it was the fastest asset ever to $1 billion, at least from what I've ever seen. Mm-hmm. And so now he creates his memes on Bitcoin, right, through Counterparty and through Ordinals. But now he has a token on Solana. And so now he's running into this issue where it's like, how can I get my community who owns Boom, but they want to buy these Bitcoin assets? How do I, right, where is that connection point? So we're working with him for when we launch Emblem Markets to start create this idea of boutique storefronts, to where you can use our vaulting technology. He could take his ordinals or his counterparty, put it inside of a vault, and then we can denominate it in Boom on Solana, and you could just purchase it that way. So now he's using Ethereum, Bitcoin, and Solana all in one. The users have no fucking idea what's going on. But the thing is, he wants to use his token, right, for his meme token for his meme NFTs, right, across all these different chains. And I'm starting to see this with the specific communities like MFers with the MFer coin. And I don't know if Dog with Hat will be like a payment thing or more of like a treasury kind of meme asset. But we're starting to see the meme coins now start to spread towards specific use cases, or they're just for specific communities. And then the memetics or the utility of that token is defined by the memetics of that community, which is interesting and awesome because it just shows now that the internet is now leaning into these communities that exist rather than having to be this kind of over generalized kind of cohort of just crypto degens. Now it's becoming a little bit more. It's very similar to Reddit, where Reddit has, millions of subreddits, and this is kind of where it's going now, but in the crypto form, to where these subreddits, if you look at it through a crypto lens, they now have their NFTs and their token. The NFTs could be on Ethereum, the token could be on Solana, right? Or the token could be on Runes, on Bitcoin, and then the NFT could be on like Say or Monad or whatever. And then it's how do you pair those together, because the culture has been cultivated on these two different chains, that they need to find technology to bridge it all together. And this is where Emblem and these interoperability in the sector of interoperability protocols really comes in place, is to be able to piece all of these together so that the communities can kind of live in harmony and have fun and be able to explore all these other chains without running into the frustrating component, which most people are today, which is like, how do I plug in these two networks together to create a frictionless experience?
Jake, man, this has been crazy, man. We got to do this again, man. I got to keep bringing you on.
Always down.
Yeah, absolutely, man, dude. Yeah, like I said, I'm gonna hit you back up again on LinkedIn, and yeah, where can people find you, Emblem Vault, everything on the internet, man?
I mean, the best way to find me is just Jake Gallen, JakeGallen. You can type me into Google. Jake Gallen _ is my Twitter account. I'm most active there. Emblem Vault's the same thing, just at Emblem Vault on Twitter, or you could go to emblem.finance is our front end. And then hopefully in a few months, or next month, hopefully, emblem.markets will be our chain agnostic marketplace, to where you could go and interact with all of our collections. Emblem Vault, again, is the leading cross-chain NFT protocol in the industry with over 100 million in TVV. That's total value vaulted. We support 12 or 13 different blockchains at this point. And the goal is to have Emblem deployed on every chain so that you could just frictionally move your NFTs and then fungible tokens across chains with the click of a button. You're not limited to the timely withdrawal kind of bridge components where sometimes you have to wait 7 days to get an asset out. Emblem is instant. It's literally just a transaction because you're trading private keys to the underlying asset, not the different token itself. So we operate in our own little realm, and it's exciting to grow. And so, yeah, if you're interested, just hit me up. I'm on Twitter or hop in the Discord. That's the easiest way to get in touch with me.
Awesome. I will leave links down below for that, man. Any closing thoughts before we go?
Strap up, man. I think this next few months for crypto is going to be a heavy consolidation period. This is the time that chill out, the alleviation of builders to where they can go and actually focus on their product and not have to focus on token price. So it'll be a good time for builders to come in. And I think over the next, 3 to 6 months, you'll see a lot of products really find some adoption, and then hopefully the next leg up towards the end of the year.
Awesome, man. Well, this concludes then this episode of the Mooncast, man, and peace.